Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics and British politics generally. On this occasion, a little bit further out in the Middle East, but sort of linked very much to British politics as well, in that, as well as everything else that's been happening in Gaza, the press officers have now been attacked, including Al Jazeera. We've now had an attack on the freedom of the press. And how is the world reacting? Not really, is it? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. This is one of the saddest reflections of humanity, I think, in the 21st century. This is an extremely thorny topic, of course, in the UK. I hesitated to do it, not because of that. Not even because I may end up straying into an area that YouTube go, oh, no, you can't monetize this. I don't shy away from certain topics. And every now and then I do the odd topic that I just want to do. Or I feel that, as a political commentator, because I have an opinion on it, I ought to really express it. I don't know whether that makes sense or not. The reason why this is such a thorny issue is that there are evil people on both sides of this in this country, and there are evil people who will always seek to hijack what should be a serious humanitarian issue for the sake of their own racist agenda. And these people will be filling up the comments with their filth, feeling themselves justified for their moronic hatred of people for no other reason that they're just hate-filled people. It's no surprise to me that there's a very strong link in this country between, say, anti-Semites and supporters of Brexit, just like there are Islamophobes and supporters of Brexit. Oh, it's quite often the same people. It's just mindless hate against someone not of their tribe, so of course there's links. This isn't Jewish people against Muslim people. Benjamin Netanyahu is an evil man. Hamas is an evil organisation. They both try and claim they're just protecting their own people against aggression. The aggression only exists because of these people and those who support them. People are tribal, yes. But we're also naturally inclined towards kindness. We don't see aggression between neighbours like this around the rest of the world. It's not that it only exists and only ever has existed where it has served the purposes of some evil people. You get internecine conflict like this in other parts of the world as well. But the thing that is most tragic for me about this is elsewhere you sort of think there'll be a way forward one day, even if it's going on for a long time. And sometimes the hate does go on for a long time. Like in Korea or Kashmir, it's gone on for so long, will there ever be an end? But you do sort of think, you can sort of see that there could be an end. There's hope of a tipping point one day and humanity will win out. Not in the Middle East, not between Israel and Palestine. It's been the developed world's interest to settle the issue for decades. Decades! Yet here we are, no nearer to doing so than we were before I was even born. And why? Because powerful factions use them for their own proxy little battles, and there's nobody powerful enough to intervene that just actually wants peace. In the case of the Middle East, it's essentially for oil. Elsewhere, it's power of another kind. But it's all the same motivation. I saw a representative of the United States government, I'm sorry I don't know who it was, at a press conference a couple of days ago, saying that they were committed to a two-state solution. I have to say, after decades of this two-state solution seeming just as far away, I'm going to have to confess to not being entirely convinced that commitment means the same to these people that I think it does. How is it possible for the most powerful country in the world, without whose money Israel could not pursue this aggressive campaign, to actually be committed to something that is never delivered? And I get the difficulties for politicians in America. I'm not actually attacking politicians directly here, even though some of them are to blame. It's America as a whole. I'm not necessarily picking on each individual American, but it is America as a whole, because they could end this in a heartbeat, stop funding the military, and the two-state solution would be in place in a matter of years. Should have been in place before I was born. I criticise our government for selling the arms, or rather allowing the sale of arms. But the money to pay for them is America. So no, I sort of know that at some point in the future, of course, something will happen. But I mean, maybe it will be when oil is no longer a resource worth screwing the world over, either because we've run out of it or because we've moved on and we don't need it anymore. You know, then maybe a genuine resolution will come. But I just don't see a political situation occurring in anyone's lifetime in the foreseeable future that is going to change this. And the reason I say that is because nothing has ever improved, really. You know, whenever you sort of feel there's been a step forward, a shaking of hands that you wouldn't have thought possible before, nothing's happened. Nothing's happened. And so the demonstrations built up in London as the weekend went on, where it sort of links in with British politics, is many Palestinians make their home here, away from the oppression in their own land. Organisers of the protest said that the UK government needed to help end the violence. Fat chance. The main highlight was a group of protesters replacing the Union flag at the Daily Mail with a Palestinian one. Small little victory, a little blow, a gesture for people who essentially have no power to do anything tangible. Small show of solidarity. But there was no chance of getting the government to actually take a stand, even with a gesture. I mean, I don't really know what influence we have in the region. I don't think, for example, it's even within Boris Johnson's power to have stopped this, to be perfectly honest. Even if we had a decent government that wanted to help, all we'd have got was the usual crap, a call for calm and for both sides to talk and not chuck fire at each other. But it would be at least condemning the violence, even if it wasn't actually helping to stop it. But we don't have a decent government. We have a government that has defended these attacks against civilians. We have a government that understands only one thing in this regard. If Israel uses weapons against its neighbours, then it will be in the markets to buy more from manufacturers in this country. Of course, it's a breach of our own laws to sell arms if there's a reasonable belief they'll be used against civilians. And of course they have been. And not just collateral damage either, you know, where human shields have been used around military targets. Israel calmly on Saturday, from my point of view today, from your point of view I suppose yesterday, said that they were about to flatten the offices of the press, including Al Jazeera, and then proceeded to do so. A military strike against the press. For no other reason than it was the press. No justification, none at all. I cannot think of a more blatant attack on civilians as to not only target actual citizens, but their voice as well. And when this sort of thing happens, you know, you get the usual calls of crimes against humanity. The term is used so often it loses all meaning. For many of those who do use it, they indeed do not know the meaning. People often use them to mean any act of dickery against others. But it is a legal term and it has specific terms of use. When it comes to the treatment of Palestinians, they are indeed the victims of crimes against humanity. And not just in this assault, in fact, less so in this assault, in their daily lives, and have done so for many years, all my life, as far as I can tell, in fact, which means most of their lives as well, of course. But the arguments fall on deaf ears. People in this country don't really see what's going on, and why would they? You know, there are human rights abuses all over the world, including in the UK. I only judge harshly those who don't see them in their own communities, because it's like they're going around with their eyes shut. It's perfectly understandable you don't see them thousands of miles away, but it means most people are right for whatever spin is fed to them through the media. But what justification can there possibly be for flattening press officers, for shutting down freedom of the press, even, you know, in a time of war? And this is not a time of war. Only the basest of autocrats attack the media. Even Saddam Hussein welcomed journalists during the Gulf Wars. For goodness sake. And, you know, here we are. We had a direct, deliberate attack in full view of the world. And what did the world do? Bog all, as far as I can tell. Socially responsible media outlets called it out for what it is. Governments did nothing. Okay, some spoke out against it, but nobody actually did anything. True, still early days were there to be sanctions against it, you know, for this act. But they would not have been so blatant and so bold if there were going to be any actions against it. They announced this thing well in advance. There was enough time for a government who had influence to have gone through the usual diplomatic channels and says, do not do this or there'll be consequences. The strike wasn't sudden. It wasn't unexpected. They boasted about it in plenty of time. Nothing was done. So clearly, nobody with any influence did anything. I saw someone on Twitter saying that with each attack on Gaza, UK civil society opposition gets bigger and more electorally influential. I see no evidence of this at all. That the British government didn't even offer a weak condemnation while still selling arms causing this damage behind their backs would seem to indicate that there's no influence. The government see no electoral risks in denouncing this attack on the freedom of the press or the attack on civilians in general. You know, if anything, the influence may be getting weaker. I think maybe the problem is that the organisations that are most interested in this country in pursuing this are those who engage the least with consensus building. They just shout and scream and froth and do nothing. You know, and you see them scream and shout about how everyone's a dickhead, everyone's a bell end. And sure enough, most of the time they're right, yeah. But unless you have sackfuls of cash, you don't persuade politicians of anything by telling them that they're bell ends. And you don't persuade the media to get into your corner by telling them that they're bell ends either. Maybe what's needed are people who want to do more than just shout with a placard. Maybe what's needed are some smarter organisers. You know, people who want to make a difference instead of just shouting. After all, this is the thing that gets me, we are a compassionate people in many ways. You see the money we raise for charity. It's huge. We don't like to see people suffering. We even help to stop it if we can. But we aren't being shown the suffering in Gaza. If we were, maybe then the issue could be more electorally influential. Perhaps what's needed is a real push to not just share outrage in echo chambers and froth about how terrible it is and how terrible it is that our government are doing nothing, but actively get the word out. Not in an echo chamber, not amongst people who'll just agree with you, not in an aggressive or patronising way either, but in the spirit of engagement. I don't know. But those are my thoughts anyway. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.